Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way remote viewing experience with San Qing and Marty. So
Okay,
now he's like, you never introduce it. I'm like, oh, here we go. There you go.
There you go. You introduce it nicely. Let me give you a little background on what I'd like to discuss. So let's discuss materials retrieved from UFO crashes. In particular, the UFO crash associated with Area 51 and Roswell in 1947. And I want to read just a little quote to make this really clear. The crash often associated with Area 51 is the famous Roswell incident, which occurred in 1947. However, the actual crash site was near Corona, New Mexico, approximately 75 miles north of Roswell. This location is quite far from Area 51, which is in Nevada. The Roswell incident involved the recovery of debris from what was initially reported as a flying disc. So that's the end of the quote. Now, I believe years later, Hal Puthoff, I think you know him. He was RV. He got into a lot of this other high-tech stuff. Anyway, Hal Puthoff retrieved at least one piece from the UFO crash site years later. He believed one piece was from the outside shell of the crashed UFO. I saw one online reference to this, and then the reference was removed. Now, here's my a question. Did Hal have a piece of debris material from the skin of this crashed UFO?
No.
Well, that certainly changes the direction.
There's being a lot of, from what he's showing me, more evidence of some type of fabricated event that wants to be seen in secrecy as something that it is not. Because these aliens that people want to find are not using something as clunky and as archaic as what we're being shown as. It's almost to the time period equivalent to as if something that is of such high frequency from a different planet and the abilities to commandeer and travel through the universe, that it would have something that's almost to the time period in its same type of format is
to crash.
Yeah.
Was there a crash in 1947?
No.
So there was no crash. Complete fabrication.
Absolutely.
Were there any crashes on Earth from UFOs?
That's really crazy. Yes.
Okay.
But it's not what you seem. Well, it would not be seen as a crash. It's a landing. And so that landing specifically is. Are we talking planet Earth or America?
Because planet Earth.
Planet Earth. It's in Paris. It's in France. Somewhere in the south of France. I mean, I can get more information. It's like whatever, but it's in France, and we'll have to get the actual coordinates. But yeah, it's in France.
Okay. Have there been any in America? Landings?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Well, there's this desire. What he wants to bring your attention to is how is it that to that period where we're experiencing a fabricated material-based evidence that would be similar to the types of materials that you could acquire for that time period. And so, aliens are not operating with some clunky old sort of the Jetsons flying saucer. It's almost like, okay, well, where is the vision? And he's just going to make it very clear. Where is the vision for what is the future? And so it's almost like it's captured in that time as what is futuristic from the mind and the creation of the mind. Let's fabricate that and then hand it to the masses as evidence of interaction with, aliens, because that would almost be, it's like going, oh, you know what? This time frame we can buy right now you can buy a Tesla, but if you go back to 1950s, the most popular car is like a Bel Air, and you're literally having the same infrastructure and architecture of that material within that state that would be similar to that time period.
Okay,
so,
let me go to where I was hoping to head anyway, and I can still go there, even though there does not appear. So let me ask it directly, and then I'll get to the main point.
Yeah,
there is no. This is a question: is there debris material in the hands of Americans, Chinese, Soviets, anybody from a UFO?
No.
Okay.
100%. I was like looking for it. I want to look for it. I want to get excited.
Okay.
This is the part where the excitement from the individual and the masses' desire to have contact is almost like reaching for something and it's out of your grasp. It disappears like an oasis. And this is the fundamental issue, because these type of technologies that we have encountered through our own journey, through remote viewing, yourself and myself, these are beyond advanced technologies that are not limited to a captured time frame within the human condition, within the human timeline. That doesn't make any, first of all, it shouldn't make any sense to anyone that's looking for this stuff. And furthermore, he's basically making it very clear that this is being fabricated for the masses for that time period to satisfy their desire for contact.
Till now, setting it up. I mean, UFOs are real in the sense that they've been observed, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
But
the technology is beyond. The technology is a technology that can be, it's like instantaneous, like teleportation. It's not, oh, I see a UFO in the sky and he came down and he wanted to hang out with me. This is all just fabricated Hollywood stuff.
Let me now get to what at least has been a hypothesis of mine. The skin of the UFOs, is that involved in their propulsion when they're sort of seeable and the teleportation? Tell me a little bit about the skin, because I believe that is key.
Well, this is a transmuted state, just like the present moment, that can be altered as if it just evaporates and reappears with the switch of a button. Furthermore, the switch of their mind and their ability to form and deconstruct and reconstruct at will using their attention. So it can be in the form of a ship, but generally speaking, it's teleportation from their mind to a planet at will, and it's a zipping effect. The material that you're speaking of is not something that is part of the construct of say a larger vehicle or ship that you would call it, that would basically handle a community of aliens or things of that nature. There is it's a morphable a material that will, like a chameleon, will morph into the universe as just a dark night sky the stars and can reappear as something that is a tangible vehicle at will, but it doesn't come in the form of like a saucer. These shapes are very specific. They're like, from what he's showing me, they're almost like teardrops and shapes that are in the form of an arrowhead, that are the vehicles that they use that will effectively change the speed of wherever they're going throughout the galaxy or whatever they're doing. But these shapes are not saucer-like. Does that make sense?
Well, except they've got pictures of some that are.
Mm-hmm.
But so, I mean, he's not, or is he, denying that sometimes they might want to transmute teleport into saucer shape, into they can go into whatever shape they want, correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Will.
When they're seen on Earth, in our atmosphere, they seem to have very unusual, you can't even call it propulsion because they don't use propulsion. I believe that they may be using what's called the 0-point energy field.
That's exactly what he was about to say, which is because everything is interconnected, you can instantaneously, it's like think it and you are there.
Correct.
That is the point of origin in relation to the connectivity and the ability to transport.
Okay. Excellent. And he understands the 0-point energy concept because it's everywhere.
This is it's sort of a subdued micro version of a macro, because everything is coming from this origin state and it's being transmuted into something that is decipherable by a human being. So you have a universe, you have a planet. These are all things that are necessary for human beings to understand the value of that. But when you move past the veil, that's not even part of the menu. Does that make sense?
Well, you're saying for many ETs, that's irrelevant. They can teleport into physical spaces, but for them, it's irrelevant.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is a human experience construct that is being developed to decipher what it is that the human being is experiencing.
Trying to make sense out of.
Yes.
Okay. I want to make sense out of when they're near planet Earth in the atmosphere, they have the ability to move high speed, right angles, all of that. In fact, Hal Puthoff has said that he understands that under some conditions that's doable based on Einstein's general theory of relativity. But the skin may very well be connected to the 0-point energy field. Does that make sense? And it might.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's this skin I'm talking about. And you brought up the word consciousness. I was going to ask that too, because I think consciousness with the skin is where it gets its motion. So I would just like more information on the skin. I think is it thin? The skin that's interacting with the 0-point energy field?
Well, the skin is literally layered to harness the potential of what that alien is. So it's like a container. So you're literally it's just potential that is being contained within the skin.
I get that. That fits now with sort of where I'm going. Though we get there.
It's interesting, Marty. You take me on these magical mystery rides. I would never even want to think about this stuff. But it's funny how it's very, very interesting.
Interesting. You use the word that I was going to use, and that's layering. Let's get back to the skin and tell me about its layers. We've talked about layers on the moon and Mars, big layers, and they're sort of interesting. How about the layers on the skin of one of these UFOs?
Right. So it's interesting because it holds a similar construct as the actual alien itself. So it's like literally like a translucent a rubber suit. And so you can form the alien. It's from the same material that harnesses the potential. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we're getting a lot closer to how they're so mobile.
Right.
And it's one, the ship and the alien inside, aliens, whatever, are kind of one. We all know the whole universe, we are one, but okay.
But this skin that you speak of is like you can literally see through it, and it's like it has all the elements that are missing within specific places or destinations they go to. They have these elements in it. It's like layered, like dermal layer, as human skin has these elements, and it's exposed to that. This is contained within the skin. There is nothing that it's not a bacteria that lives on the skin. It's just nothing more than a way to harness their potential as a somewhat object or a profile of an alien, or furthermore, the ship is the same thing. It's made out of all this material. So, quite frankly, when you look at it, there it's instantly there and gone at the same time.
Well, they can do that. And I understand the concept of teleportation, transport.
Right.
Let's take a not typical, I'm sure there isn't one. Let's take an alien example. Okay. Name it. There are lots of aliens out there. Which one would Lao Tzu like to work with?
Let's just say one that comes immediately is this gray alien energy, right? The grays, whatever you want to call them.
So they're in ships sometimes.
So well, these are all these energies that are harnessed within these, what you would consider a rubber suit, like literally like a wetsuit.
Right.
These are all contained and can instantly materialize into matter in this state. It's like when I say entering the veil, it's like you have the bubble of the universe, and these energies are literally coming from outside that, and they're operating inside the universe, and then they're able to then form to whatever planet that they land on.
Right.
So they will, all the Hollywood nonsense of some of these things like the Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger is being animated with this sort of like programming chip, and then more evolved Terminator, which is the T-1000 with the metal element to it. This is very real shit. I'm just going to say it. Okay. This is not a delusional state. It's just a progression of where we are at meeting the information and having it being constructed on planet Earth. But that stuff it's already happening. The melting metal guy is happening right now, meaning it's morphing into the shape of whatever you want it to be. It's like literally, what do you want me to look like? I can create that. So that means that when people are having these defined moments of epiphanies, or they're witnessing aliens, or they're experiencing dreams or lucid dreams, they are forming to whatever that person's desired outcome is. How do I want to see this? And they're creating it and giving you the image you're looking for.
Based on consciousness. Tell me about the grays.
Right.
Okay, well, so the grays travel when they want to on vehicles.
Right. All these aliens are variables of the same thing, meaning that you are seeing a variable of something that is a constant within this universe, and furthermore outside of the universe. So it will continue to craft and form itself. This is like a collective energy, not like the loosh, but it is an energy that will morph itself into anything that you imagine. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I wanted to see an alien that had 3 heads and 82 teeth and like 4 tails. And then sure enough, it will create that. So what is the intelligence that I want to ask, Lao Tzu? What is the intelligence of this? Well, it is all encompassing. It wrote the story and the ending to what we're experiencing within humanity right now.
I get that. I actually do get that. That's the super, super, super higher power sort of idea. But I want to get more specific. We've mentioned the grays.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the skin on when they travel on ships, and they do. Tell me about the skin on the ship that the grays travel in.
Now,
give me the layering. Give me the layering of it.
The skin that I'm observing and he's showing me looks very much like the skin of a shark. Take a shark and it has that type of quality and element to it. And it's, once again, formed within this collective from planet Earth of what is perceived as an alien. It's again, to the time period from when the first acknowledgement of these energies, these aliens, you will notice that they are formed within a time period, whatever that was, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, whenever there was the first time that it was witnessed, they are forming the shape of these aliens from what is possible within the imagination of the seeker or the believer within that time period. So it's almost like you see a human being in the 50s, and then you see a human being in 2025, different haircut, different look.
And 10,000 years ago.
Right.
Okay, but tell me more about the shark, the gray's shark skin. Yes, it's like a shark. In fact, they look a little bit like a shark, and that fits with what you said. But tell me about the material layer. Is it one uniform layer, or are there multiple layers involved in that skin?
The skin is like a shark skin. If you skin them, that skin would come off. The only difference between that and other aliens, from what I can see right now, is it's attached. You'll see like a vascular system that is sort of made up of what would seem like arteries, but they're harnessed wires that enter into the center point of the mass that is contained within this vehicle that you call the body, right? So all these wires, they're red, and they enter into it. Now, when you skin the shark, you skin the gray, you're experiencing just a seepage or expansion of this energy. So this is a container for this particular alien that you want to call a gray, but within it, this is unusual to the original translucent skin that we were talking about previously, is that it has a harnessing, and it's not like localized like a vascular system within a human body. It is all these. The second you take the skin back, they're like wires. There seems to be hundreds of them, and they're red wires that come into a center point within the mass of energy. And so when you take the skin off, it starts to leak this energy, and it starts to then reform as the surrounding. And so the skin itself would seem like it could be some element of life that is being supported by this vascular system that looks like red wires that enter into this sort of like energy center that's in the center point of the mass. But once you take the skin off, the energy just reforms as the surrounding. Does this make sense?
Not quite. Yeah. But I mean, the skin is intimately connected to the inside workings of the ship.
Yeah, it's like
and the gray, apparently, they're all connected.
It's a nuclear center that was not present in the last, when we're talking about the other alien evidence, it was just all energy, right? And it was contained within this rubber suit. This particular alien has the skin that is very much shark-like, and it's very to touch, it's like touching sandpaper.
Okay,
And
you're
then
talking about the alien. I'm interested in the alien, of course. And
Right,
those
right.
things you said are inside the alien. I'm really interested in the skin of the vehicle he's traveling in.
Right,
Now,
right.
it's sort of shark-like, but it
Yeah.
has layer. Is it a I don't even know what would be the homogeneous
Well, it
material makeup. It's got to be made up of multiple materials. I want to
Well-
know about those materials.
right. Well, if you're looking closer at the materials, the claim would be, from what he's sharing with me, is it's constructed within some type of like material that would be like tangible. But
Right.
this is the very illusion of this.
No,
It's
but when it's tangible,
right. When it's tangible, it's made up
what
of
are the layers? Give me the.
when it's tangible, it's made up of titanium, gold, and jade, which I don't get that. Whatever. Hey, this is your party, my friend.
Is there more?
No.
Okay, and how thick? When it's tangible, how thick is this layer?
The layer is at least 3 inches thick.
So it's a thick layer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the other ETs, which had a translucent skin.
Right, right.
What is when it's material? Okay, and we know it doesn't have to be. When it's material, what is that skin made of?
That skin is made of something that would resemble like fiberglass, but it is not. That fiberglass is inset with, again, more elements, which diamond, gold, silver, integrated into the fabric of that, as you would call it, construct.
Diamond, gold, silver, any other elements?
No.
Okay, and so the entity inside, its skin is also made of diamond, gold, and silver.
And that construct, by the way, when it's formed, is very, very thin. It's
Now,
like
this one is thin.
half an inch.
That's not very thin, but okay.
Half an inch is that thick. I'm not talking about the entity. I'm talking about the ship. If it's that thick, that's pretty thin. In my opinion.
Yeah, I can see where you might say that, and you're probably right.
I don't know.
In the scientific community, they have convinced themselves, and you said they're really all wrong, that there's a very thin skin with multiple layers that gets the energy to propel the vehicle from the 0-point energy field. Do these skins get their energy from the 0-point energy field?
Well, the 0-point energy field is basically like the, what would you call it? The highway and how it operates within this realm. But no, their limitless energy is not from this universe.
You know, it's so interesting because we think of propulsion, you have to have an energy source. And you're saying they're coming sort of from outside what we would consider normal energy sources, and they're just teleporting around. And they can transmute their shape.
I mean, you think about it, you go right down to a subatomic level from the aspect of science, and there are three simple ingredients to that. And then you look at how it builds on itself to what we perceive as flesh and blood right now. It all has different dimensions of energy potential, but at a cellular level, you know, we're talking the mitochondria is the energy source of where things are animated. Yet when you go out in the bigger scheme of things, when you understand, even from a path of knowledge and gnosis, that the 0 point would be the fuel to animate this realm. They are just coming from beyond this realm and being animated by a source that is something even greater than the 0 point. Yet,
let's talk about beyond. Yeah, I'm certainly getting your point of view. It is so different, and I'm going to share it and see what kind of response I get. I might get no response, but tell me, because they won't know what to do with it. I mean, for one, you're talking about we're being very consciously lied to. A lot of people say that. Okay, that's been said a lot. But the things we do see, we get on radar, we get stuff like that. You're saying that comes from an outer realm of some sort. Tell me about that outer realm.
So it's like conceptually, a lot of the ancient teaching would show you, hey, look, there's this micro macro understanding of what this true consciousness is. It's like what's inside of you is outside of you. This type of theory has been met with a lot of indigenous practices that would claim that that is the true nature of reality. When you are moving to the what we would consider the threshold or veil of this reality, this realm, this dimension, you enter into a much larger version of that will be basically the same but bigger. And it's almost like, oh, we start all over again. And then we
Is it back. Like pure consciousness?
Well, it's still formed as you leave this realm of the universe and you go past that veil, it starts to form back into the universe, which I find interesting.
Okay, why don't you see if you can explain that a little better?
It's interesting because on a much bigger scale, whenever I've done a lot of conscious exploration in the guise of astral projection, out of body, whatever you want to call it,
right.
I'm always met with this threshold where everything goes to phosphorus white light and then returns back to complete void, which is darkness, which would be symbolic, not symbolic, but the true nature. As a Taoist believer and teacher, this is met with the knowing through this experience. As you leave this realm, as you pierce the veil, as they would say, you enter in this phosphorus white light. This is showing you another replication of the universe, as if it's Groundhog Day. So you leave it and you go into another one, and you're going to go into another one. And what's really important that Lao Tzu is making clear is it's a subjective thing to the experiencer. That it will, once again, just like the aliens, morph and change and alter what you're looking to desire to see. This is what this replication of what we consider the primordial mother, which is the origin of all things, where everything is created, but it's not. It's just like a replicated effect, one into another universe. It's like you're in a Groundhog Day. It makes no sense.
What you're saying reminds me of what's called the multi-universe theory.
Right.
Where at every instant, we're living in one universe, but all these others are around us. And usually that is thought of other universes similar to ours, but different. You can imagine, if you've got a problem, another universe where that problem is not there. That's kind of a good technique to use.
Yeah.
You're saying one of these other universes is so different that it just wouldn't be like one of our normal physical modifications. It's so different that you go through a white phosphorus light.
Right. And you're able to deviate. You deviate as the light and dark merge is where you can go off into infinite possibilities. Infinite.
And these ETs come from that kind of universe.
Yes.
So it is indeed a different universe, and yet they're able to come to this one.
I find it fascinating. I got to say this to you. I find it fascinating how Hollywood seems to replicate this stuff before we get the heads up of, I'm just noticing this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is truly profound evidence. I mean, because, you know, beside my friendship with you, I wouldn't be interested in any of this stuff if someone gave me a blank check. But we're going through this experience,
Right.
and it's even more fascinating because it would not be on my radar of intrigue or curiosity to go, hey, let me look at this stuff.
And yet it's of high curiosity to me. So it's amazing that we've made this friendship, which will continue. Which Hollywood movies did you have in mind? You mentioned the Terminator, and I know that guy with his skin and everything, and he morphed and took over bodies.
Right. This is very. I mean, for anyone to create imagery for their own pleasure and experience, this is very much how these aliens operate. They operate and morph into anything that they desire or you desire. Furthermore, this is a real sort of like conjuring or catfishing of the human being's experience. There's more to it. They're shaping themselves to what you desire or are interpreting as their evidence of being here on planet Earth.
Wait, when you say you, if they were to take over a body, that body wanted to be taken over?
Not necessarily. No. They generally speaking will take over someone unconsciously.
Okay, or transport someplace where they can be seen. The Greys do that, but it's them that are doing it. The you meant was the ETs.
Right. But you know, human beings are literally having this experience, and it's being met by whatever they're desiring, and they're literally like a chameleon. They're shaping and changing for whatever you need to meet your desires.
You are the master keeper, creator of your reality. You heard that before? It turns out other older religions have said that too. You know, that doesn't fit with like Christianity, anything that has specific gods, because the gods then are supposed to be creating it. I love the expression where I read someplace, when you're praying, in reality, you're praying to yourself.
Right.
I mean, that's really heavy. And taking that to the extreme, you are saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the ETs come from a specific multi-universe, a specific universe, where they have they take it for granted, I suppose, teleportation, psychokinesis. They can go wherever they want instantly.
That's the power, the superpower is that ability to access these, what someone would say, states of consciousness, states of mind, which have been dulled down or watered down to being something almost unobtainable by a human being. Yet what they're desiring is to have power over the empathy that human beings have and possess, that they do not. They are very clinical, very sterile. They don't access emotions as human beings do.
In their universe, there are no emotions?
No emotions.
No emotions.
That's bizarre to me, but hey, look, whatever. I'm just along for the ride, Marty.
So no emotions.
No emotions. This
so
is
like
the power that is part of their acquisition of their being a part of this experience. And so looking for that, it's just like when we were looking at other planets and what was being sort of like mined or cultivated, physically mined within that planet, the materials, the resources, the elements that they were attempting to unify. It's the same thing with this. They want this superpower of empathy that human beings possess that is not present anywhere else. Yet there is life force yet this empathy component is not present. It's almost like, oh yeah, okay, the clinical cleansing aspect is I can read your thoughts in your mind. I do not connect with the emotional content, but I know it exists because I'm reading it. But what does that mean to me? I cannot. There's no correlation for the alien when you feel depression, sadness, hope, anger. They want that. They want that so badly, yet
What,
haven't found a way to possess it.
or
When
maybe
move in,
they're
that's why they move into human beings, and assumingly they commandeer that because they're attempting to access that. Even though we emote, even though we admit these things, they still cannot solidify it when they enter into your body. They're not being able to unlock that aspect yet, which I find
fascinating. Yeah. But how about trying the strategy of what a lot of people have said they're making hybrids?
right.
If they bring up a human being, mate with them, the babies might have emotions. So now they, the next generation and the next generation gets to experience emotions. Is that a strategy that's being used?
This is conceptual, as is many other things. Have they had contact where they're replicating and mating with other human beings? Yes.
Okay.
Okay, but this is what he's showing me. What the result of that is, you find someone who's completely detached from humanity and reality, and what you get as a byproduct is a psychopath, a serial killer, a madman, a mad woman, someone who is out of absolute. It's like a gene mutation, and
So it
they're just
doesn't work.
able to connect. They're still so. These are the seed of the connection with an alien and a human being is that they keep coming up with this roadblock where they're producing and breeding this very dysfunctional, almost vacant, what would seem to be a human being, but is actually just detached from the superpower that we possess, and they're wanting to connect with it, and it's not actually happening. And you get the byproduct. You get sociopaths, whack jobs, weirdos. This is where they are coming from.
Wow.
Which is crazy to me. It's
okay, but wow, I know you're getting, I know this is, as you're repeating it, it's new to you.
right.
But in some ways, their attempts goes along with the abductions of humans and then experimentation on ships. But up to now, they've failed.
Yeah. Yeah. They haven't been able to harness that potency.
So,
which would seem to be second nature to any human being that was born on planet Earth. This is just part of the machinery that comes with this human condition, this human experience. Is you get this as part of being a human being, yet it seems to be some potency or some rare gem or finding for everything outside of this planet.
So to them, it's a superpower.
Yeah.
It's like a superpower, feeling emotions.
Yeah.
What about psychic abilities? Do we humans naturally have psychic abilities? Some, as you know, they're categorized that they don't have.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you refine anything, and this is something that people need to understand, Lao Tzu makes this clear, and I teach and share it all the time. It's like you can master all states of sensory perception that go beyond what you would perceive the human experience.
Okay.
It's a matter of sitting into that alchemical process and mastering it. So once you merge with the energy, and you realize that that is the substance, that is the actual commodity, that is the very construct and the currency of this realm, then you start to master the symbiosis between electromagnetism and what that really means, how that is constructed, and perception-wise, as someone would conceive or perceive it as this dualistic experience, because these are the substances that are the foundational blocks of animation, of life within this material state. And so you can master that. Lao Tzu is very clear. Any human being can master that.
So that's how you can master precognition.
Yes.
That way. Now,
Yes.
How about them? How about these other ETs we're talking about? Can
They have the full buffet. They have the China Wok buffet. They have every flavor, every taste, except the emotions, except the empathy.
How did that happen?
It's perplexing. It's almost like this. I mean, I don't even want to make sense of it. I'm just going to keep going.
There's no sense. So, however, wow. Now, okay, here's one. When you see that light, and it dissolves and goes black, and then you go to this other, you visited this other universe.
Oh yeah.
Did you lose your emotions?
No.
So you can visit this place with emotions, and you can teach them about it, presumably.
Be that foreign exchange student teacher that comes in there.
Right.
It could be met with a little resistance.
Well, also, it would only be intellectual. There's something about emotions that is direct experience, and they apparently don't have the ability to do it.
They can't. They're just sterile. They have all the mechanisms except that. It's like the secret winning ingredients, the last ingredient to the 11 herbs and spices that come with the Kentucky Fried Chicken. They're missing that one ingredient, so they're unable to nail the recipe. That's really what's going on.
Let's look 1,000 years, our time, into the future. Will they still not have the emotions? Let's say they keep experimenting and get past psychopaths.
No.
A million years?
This is right now. This has been an ongoing thing, a pursuit for them for thousands of years.
Right.
But 1 billion years from now?
Million, yeah.
1 million? Oh shit. I don't want to say yes, but yeah, there's going to be some integration.
So they'll eventually get it.
Right. I don't want, I'm like, this is ridiculous. This stuff. It's crazy. But, I mean, it's like, it's funny because when Lao Tzu shows me 1 million years from now, people are occupying every corner, nook and cranny of the universe. Right. Yet they're still operating on all these nook and crannies, every planet, everything that you can think of. You can go and measure a star. You can go to any part of the planet as a human being, but you're still wearing these spacesuits, right? Which I find absolutely fascinating. You're still 1 million years from now, you're still wearing a spacesuit, but you're walking on Jupiter or Neptune or anything you can think of, not including the sun.
Not including what? Wait, I didn't hear that last word.
Not including the sun. The sun will be imminent death still.
That's pretty hot.
Right.
Okay, now wait. Let's talk about that. Not even 1 million years, we'll begin populating a lot of these planets. Certainly by 1,000 years, we'll be well out there. We're going to Mars in just 4 or 5 years. Now the question is, yes, he sees us going to Mars 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it would probably be closer to being an occupation, probably in the 9 to 12 year mark.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What I'm getting at is, you saw us going to so many. I'm wondering if it's still going to be in our antiquated propulsion kind of systems with the rockets, or have we mastered some of the more sophisticated techniques of traveling?
The traveling aspect will be for the few. The masses will have to take public transport. So there's a stolen component for this mastery that if it's not met, and he's making this very clear, if this is not met as an inclusive thing for humanity, it will be harnessed by the few, and the masses will still experience every nook and cranny of the universe, but the information or the ability to do such will not be revealed.
Okay, so the few. Okay, let's go 1,000 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
1,000 years. Is that when the few, in fact, have the ability to use these advanced teleportation type techniques?
It's more around 4020.
Okay. So that's sooner. That's only 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So in 2,000 years, some will have the ability to teleport. If we use that word, we know what it means. You can go anywhere you want.
Right. I think the biggest hurdle that Lao Tzu was showing me is that the misdirection of humanity is at a critical factor level right now, because we have access to all of it, yet there are a few that are attempting to misdirect and make it impossible to access information, and they're being foiled by that because of the accelerated level of communication that has taken place on planet Earth. And so what would seem to be the most popular point of reference would be something like AI. AI is antiquated. It's clunky. It's old. It's dinosaur stuff. Yet we must be mindful of AI, because if left to its own devices, will absolutely direct humanity to a downhill spiral. And so that needs to be met, and it will be met.
Right. 2,000 years from now, we're still around.
We're still around, and what will happen is there will be a controlling and very condensed harboring of this information, this ability, and AI will turn into the slave that it claims it's going to turn humanity into. And so there will be a power that will be put together to harness that and to limit it, even though it would seem like it's uncontrollable at this point. No, it's going to be very controllable. We're going to wake up to ourselves and realize that this is not the answer. We already have the power. And so he's making it very clear, don't be distracted by talking heads that are saying that this is going to take over the world and everyone's going to lose their job, their livelihood, their everything. This is a fear-based nonsense propaganda event. But there will be a complete harnessing of this energy, and it will return to what it is developed for, as being our Sherpa, our slave, our attendant, our whatever you want to call it. But it will be humbled and contained for the service of humanity as such, as your assistant, but not as a dominant power that controls the world. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's great. That's the dream. And yet, while that's going on, there's apparently another group that has harnessed this teleportation idea, and they're keeping it secret. And they're the ones who will keep, even with AI, they're going to keep lying about this capability and keeping it to themselves. Tell me a little bit more about this group, and they're here now. Tell me a little bit more about them now.
This is an integrated collective that would seem on the surface as being what most people are talking about, and have been in the recent history, as a globalist type of based hierarchy. That is a distraction. That's a lie.
Right.
It's a much bigger collective that is not just a handful 100 people or a couple hundred people. The collective of this information and accumulation of the information is a community of several thousand. It's like 20 or 30,000 people that are fully aware of this. And that is contained enough through their own generational hand-me-downs to be able to deflect by pointing the finger at the very few talking heads that most people would consider within mainstream media as, oh, these are the people that are attempting to try and control us, i.e. Bill Gates or, Facebook or any of these people. They're just patsies. They're just the distraction. They're there to be used and abused and be given the idea that these are the people, like the head of Google and all that. No. Those people are just pass on hot potato avatars. They're just a suit without a personality. They're just distractions. And they were ordained. They were given this basic power to be a distractive to this larger community of people that are accumulating this information.
Can we give a name? This makes sense to me. Can we give a name to this larger? Is it? And I don't mean to suggest this. I'm hoping you will give it to me. But it sounds like it's a group that goes way back. Masons. There are other groups like that, and one of them has been so successful that it's this large group you're talking about.
It's actually it's actually native to each part of the continent, each part of the world. So find the most indigenous ancient practices of each part of the world, and these are the very collective that are cultivating this. So, for example, in America, you would look at American Indians.
That's what I was.
They are part of it. India, you would look at ancient practices that are a yogic or Hindu related. Same thing. Now, I would say the reference to anything that is ancient in its mysticism and cultivation has origins with this collective, and they're all being met together. Now, I feel left out because I wasn't given the memo. It's like I wasn't given the memo that I was supposed to be part of this collective.
Well, meditate a little and see how you can join. But
right.
But they're in telepathic communication, I guess, and have always. Would this be like the shamans?
You mentioned the Masons. They are another distraction. They're deluded. Absolutely fundamentally deluded, and they're there to basically to hold the bag. When the cops turn up, they're the ones getting arrested, not the actual origins of this stuff. This is way more deep and ancient. And even when I go back to my teacher, Yellow Emperor and Jade Emperor, that are tens of thousands of years old, the origins of Chinese culture, even with Lao Tzu at the helm, teaching me this way ancient teaching of wisdom, there is no reference to this collective. This is a collective that has sprouted and been born over probably the last 1,200 to 1,000. So we're looking at around 1,000 AD.
And I was thinking it goes back 10,000 years when it looked like we were first. About 1,000 AD,
mm-hmm. Which is it politically correct at this point? Do we talk about that? Yes. Yeah.
Well, hey, we've got to be able to talk about truth,
right?
That's what Lao Tzu was apparently giving me.
And that was not offered. That was not the part of the collective was not offered within the Taoist cultivational practices, which I find interesting.
You didn't get the memo. I understand.
Didn't get the memo. I wasn't invited, party. I was invited to the party. What's going on here?
How did there was a time when it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yes.
It
was like individual sex and methods of indigenous practices across the globe. and then there was a basically a point of coming together as a constant collective, accumulating this information, and it was being met across the globe.
So it didn't happen suddenly. There was none, and then the American Indians with their shamans or everything sort of got this.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Europe, there were other people, religious mystics,
Right,
who got it. Did they get it at the same time, or
I
did
think
they each get it?
Well, what he's saying is the second there was evidence of this collective, as people started to reach out past what they perceive as their village, their town, their country, with whatever means was possible, being, jump in a boat and travel across the globe. I mean, what did that take? Like 5 years to get somewhere? Who knows? I mean, it was more met with this collective of masters of these sensory perceptions that were being able to connect in what we would consider the ether, which reflected to today. They were able to communicate and then validate from that point of communication by meeting each other physically, but first meeting each other in consciousness. And so that's how this whole community was formed. And it's like, okay.
At once, take 10 years, linear Earth time?
It took about 129 years for it to meet, and was being handed from generation to generation, where there was a very structured community that was very aware of this accumulation of information.
They must have a name. Do they have a name?
This is interesting. You ask for a name, and it's called the silent.
Interesting. Okay.
It's like what the...
That's what it gave you.
Yeah, I honestly, Marty, maybe I should start putting a little bit of something silly in this, because this is getting...
I mean, this is what you're getting.
It's crazy.
I was asking, we need to talk about something. See, like, this is fascinating. I've heard nothing that I can deeply disagree with. It's so, I don't know, far out is not the right word, because it fits with the ultimate expansion of what I believe, but pushing me even further.
Well, I mean,
there's no validation. I'd love to get something which had validation.
Right. I mean, when you sit back and marinate in this type of stuff, when you realize that the validation is the actual visceral experience you're having from a tuning fork. It's like, if you hit, your body's a tuning fork. Let's be very clear. Right. You hit a tuning fork and you have another one that can meet the same frequency, it's going to vibrate. And so when we're looking in this part of history, we have come to a conclusion, and a collective conclusion, that enough of the book read conceptual stuff, even though you have been very much in the foundation of that, you have expanded through your own experience to know that it's beyond what someone else has perceived and put down as a foundation of what the human timeline is, what the real foundations of science are, and then how that science reflects on, what we consider consciousness today. There are still many variables that they cannot validate. That is still up in the air with a question mark. Yet there's a collective consistency where people are like, you know what? I'm getting the same feeling. And when we talk about the universe, when we talk about the 0 point, when we talk about the collective, you are being able to validate that through your own tuning fork. And it's not just because when I look at some of the practices I teach people that are thousands of years old, and I go, and it gets met with someone who's a physicist who starts discovering a few things in the universe. And I'm like, well, that's a technique that we've been practicing for thousands of years. Like, for example, activating the center dantian, which we call the second dantian, And what happens is through this alchemical process, you witness the death of a star, the rising of the red phoenix, and the revealing of black hole energy from that center point, which returns us to what we consider the void. How in Tao's name did they ever find that if they didn't have a computer, didn't hear from a physicist? How in Tao's name were they able to have this knowing, and then the potency of that and what that does for an activation, an alchemical process for the seeker that's cultivating this stuff is second to none, because it opens up a whole gateway to all these other possibilities through that particular cultivational practice. But it makes so much, it's met with so much sense when someone like, I'm not sure whether you're familiar with a guy by the name of Nassim Haramein. I think we talked about this before. Mm-hmm. And he is a self-proclaimed physicist. He doesn't claim that he went to, 20 years at MIT, yet he's captured enough of the interest of the masses through his own discovery. And that, to me, makes way more sense in relation to the path of Taoist alchemy, because he literally refers to the black hole energy that he finds within every entanglement, within every center point of all these, what we perceive as the entanglement, the super glue we refer to as the 0 point that you talk about. And it's like, that makes a hell of a lot more sense. It's like, hang on a second, but I can feel it. And I know that to be true because this is the stuff I've been teaching people for decades. And it comes from thousands of year-old training. My very question I always ask Lao Tzu is, how the hell did you guys get this stuff thousands of years ago? And it's now being validated from the humanistic perspective through science and physics.
How does he answer that?
And his answer is because you can access anything at will, and the ability to do that is to fall back into the void and what we would refer as this present moment. And so through our alchemical process, we make it very easy for a human being to fall into that resonance and then literally access information. Someone will call it the Akashic, whatever you want to call it. And you can get that information presently.
Listening to you and knowing how much knowledge you have, I don't understand what the silent group could have that's dramatically different. I mean,
what the silent group is a group of ancient practitioners of individual indigenous practices that are looking, it's almost very parallel to a belief system that is equivalent to Jehovah's Witness, that there's an inclusive amount of people that can have this information. But I can tell you right now that being aware of this, we as humanity can change the direction of that if we choose to. That, I mean, just the purpose of my training others to help people remember who they are, this is the very foundation of the path of any Taoist alchemist, is to go from seeking to knowing. By cultivating that knowing, you help raise that resonance for humanity. So, I personally, I would see that in a much shorter timeline. This is what he's sharing with me now, but I would assume this would happen tomorrow with the amount of people that are waking up. Yet that's not what he's saying to me at this very moment. Can that be altered? 1,000%.
1,200 years in the course of humanity is not very long.
Yeah.
The one thing they seem to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, because there are probably others, is this teleportation ability.
Yes.
Somehow they developed that a long time ago, and they're keeping it secret. Do they have any other abilities like that would be unique to them?
Well, that specifically is literally like what's that old movie from the 70s or 60s? The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I'm like,
right.
You're literally commandeering. And, if you were in Men in Black and you open the guy's face up and there's a little alien inside, you are literally being commandeered by someone's ability. Now, I'll be very, very clear that was one of the catalysts for Yellow Emperor, who created planet Earth. The Chinese culture. that his teaching, and he shares this with me, his desire to harness that energy that would maintain immortality through his teaching of the universe whispering to him, giving him direct downloads for Chinese culture as you know it. One of the catalysts for him was immortality. So he would literally master the ability to literally harness energy from any life source and basically digest it like Pac-Man. And that's part of the alchemical process. You can use it for good or evil. It's very important that we understand that there is no boundaries to the potential once you understand its energy. You being conscious of that would only limit you by your mental emotional state. So they're commandeering, they're able to transmute into someone's physical body and unassumingly control their thoughts, their feelings, and basically sip from their energy.
But they also can just teleport into somebody's room.
Yes.
And not necessarily take over the body, but that person will see them.
Yeah.
Can you do teleportation?
When I experience what you would consider teleportation or astral projection, shape shifting, it's literally when I shape shift, it's entering into that person's consciousness, and then they meld back into the unconscious, and I can shape myself into any shape that they want to perceive it as. And so all of a sudden, even though I'm standing here as San Qing, you can see, Justin Bieber or, whoever it is. And I mean, on a more clinical level, someone would perceive that as, a reverse hallucination.
Well,
Can I materialize my physical flesh? I have yet to be given that memo that anything is possible.
I think you got part of the memo.
Yeah, I got part of the memo. I got part of the memo. But that commandeering, I think there's a consensus here, though, Marty. There is this. All it has to do with is literally the attention of the seeker or the observer. That really is how this is entered into, and what can be done with it is like limitless, quite frankly. Because I've seen the transmutation of the material state. I've been seeing that for decades, and so the limit of that is, in my opinion, unlimited. So for me to go, is it possible to transport and deconstruct and reconstruct instantaneously? I believe that to be true. I've just yet to experience it.
Well, that has been one of your desires,
Mm-hmm.
And what you've exposed here, I don't know if it's my desire to go through that light and go into the state, which I'm visualizing it as like pure consciousness. Consciousness is still fundamental. So, right, you agree with that. So we're getting through this white and then black space and into another universe. I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe I do, but I don't know if I want to do it. I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Well, I love these things because you certainly give me a lot to muse on. And I don't know. Does Lao Tzu have any questions for me? How you?
I mean, it's always fascinating to see where you go with this stuff.
I know.
It's mind-blowing. It's definitely not on my conscious level anything I'd be even interested in. Quite frankly.
Every time we do this, I have to tell you, you surprise me, you shock me, you give me information which most scientists who are even studying this would probably not believe. That's why I'm sometimes hesitant.
Yeah.
So
tapping into this stuff is a real. It's a mastery, but it's also something that there must be no boundaries or expectations or an idea of what is supposed to be met.
Right.
So, you know, and I think the fun that we're having is you bring up, you know, destinations and information of something you want to be more exploratory with, and it's not even on my radar of anything I'd be even interested in. And that's when we get real stuff.
Right.
That's when we get the stuff that is really, wow, okay, holy crap.
I know a guy who's really big on the multi-universe theory. I'm going to send this to him because you have expanded that to multi-universe where the ETs are, and it's from there that they can do their teleportation.
Yeah.
Maybe next time I'll ask you more. Do they have a concept of time and stuff like that there?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's more like, and I'm going to use this word very loosely, heaven. It's more like where the soul might go after the physical body dies.
I mean, we could start to look at it that way. I wouldn't define it as that. Lao Tzu doesn't define it as that. But yeah, I mean, from a attempting to grasp what that means, you could start there. I mean, that's the whole, you know, polarizing effect of yin and yang.
Maybe we'll put that up next time. The soul is obviously worth an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of discussion. And, you know,
fascinating
is right. And you probably have thought about the soul yourself a lot.
No, not at all, actually.
Okay, I love to come up with the ones that you don't know.
Yeah, I'm not at all, and it's. I think that's where a lot of this stuff of me remembering and being able to access this stuff, because you get a fundamental, like when you look at someone. Have you ever heard of a guy named Darren Brown before?
No.
Okay, so he's a self-proclaimed illusionist stroke magician, as like a David Blaine type of character, right? And so there's some fundamental things that you just know when you witness these guys that are doing and tapping into the unconscious state, where they're not just doing illusionary things that are met with manipulation and it's just the trick of the mind. They're actually meeting their unconscious and being able to develop a skill that is tapping into potential information source. And so there's one, I distinctly remember this one event where he was going on his tour where he's doing his little magic show, and he went on a TV show here in America, and he was saying, hey, look, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna transport information to you. You guys are gonna stand opposite each other at arm's length, and I'm gonna get you to experience this thing where you can think something and then put it into her mind. And it's like, okay, now that seems sort of like almost impossible for most people. You and I understand that thought projection, the idea of telepathy is very real, right? So, okay, this is great. This is a great concept for most people, but not met with any evidence-based reality. They're just like, oh, that's something out of the movies. So he would put these two people opposite each other, and then he would do fundamental things that would help them align that thought projection, which is really within Taoism, you transmute the energy from the Bai Hui, and it's then projected from all three. Actually, there's 9 eyes, but let's just start with 3. This and these 2, and you project a thought into the ether, and it's met with someone else receiving it. Now, something as mechanical as putting people opposite each other and they're performing this exercise, they're more likely than not going to capture the thought form because that's what their attention is on. But there's a level of resistance that comes with someone's conscious mind, and this is how you start developing this skill. So he, for example, had this superpower that he loved to do, where he would reach into a bowl of rice and pull out a handful of rice, and then he would count. He would be able to tell you how many grains of rice he had in his hand.
Wow.
And you'd watch him reach in and grab it, and he'd hold it and he'd go, there's 146. But before he did that, this is how he set himself into the unconscious, the subconscious state where he could access the information. He'd grab the rice and go, someone slap me. What are you talking about? Slap me right now. And so this was part of his conditioning to access the unconscious by distracting the conscious. And the second they slapped his face, he would then come up with a number. He'd open his hand up, drop the grains of rice on the table. They would count it out right to the last number. And this was how he was like, distract the conscious, go into the unconscious, access the information, and it's right now. And so when he was doing, and that charge you got right now, Marty and I are like, woo! Yeah, I mean, this is a fundamental skill that a lot of these illusionists use, but most of them don't believe in magic themselves. They're just, it's an act, man. I'm just like, none of this stuff is real. And it's funny, when you listen to these guys, they're like, they literally go around calling themselves mentalists and illusionists and magicians. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is crap. I'm just tricking you. I'm just tricking your mind to believe that I actually did something, but I'm not doing it. Yet you and I both know that bending metal and these types of levels of sensory perception are absolutely tangible and real. And we know enough people, including myself, I've done it before many times. It's very tangible, very real, very completable.
And the distraction, what you said about distraction in terms of spoon bending is so key. You focus, and then you get distracted and it'll bend. So I think in a way that's trusting your deep self.
Right. And, you know, you might go down a rabbit hole now and go, who is this Darren Brown? Let me look him up. He's fascinating because he, again, will claim that he doesn't believe in any of his stuff, too. And he goes around, he's actually had a whole series where he went around claiming that he was a healer. Mm-hmm. And he went through America. He actually went through Arizona, and he was calling himself a new faith, new reborn Christian healer. And he would go to churches and he would use hypnotic states to literally perform psychokinesis on people. But he was just claiming, hey, look, you know, all I'm doing is using the trickery of the mind. This is not some superpower. I just understand how to do it. And the truth is there's a level of mastery that comes with what he's doing that is absolutely a heightened sensory perception that you and I are very familiar with measuring in these types of levels. So, you know, you'll probably go down that road and go, damn you, San Qing. I've just spent 5 hours watching Darren Brown because he is fascinating. His ability to access that unconscious state and commandeer your attention is definitely mastery. And there are certain things that he does. Even when I observe David Blaine, there are certain things that he's mastered from an alchemical process that are absolute. He's learned it from a guru, an indigenous teacher, and he's applying it in his, you know, little show of illusion and magic. And this is all just for fun. None of this is real. And then there's this element where they've devoted their mastery to this art form, and it's become real. And I just find it fascinating.
I do. And mastery of that is so fantastic. Mastery of any of these things. I'm working on mastery of precognition, and we're doing reasonably well on that. But then you look at what the ETs are doing, mastering teleportation at will. Maybe that's what I'll try to work on.
Right. I think that's the next thing. We need to hang out with Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
Right.
I'm sure they're going to give us the tricks and tips that are necessary. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. The audience, Marty and I are always welcoming observers and people that are interested in this type of thing. And we're grateful that you're spending the time to listen to our conversation and where we go. And so we'll see you again soon.